The Lagos night cracked like a whip. Thunder rolled across the skies as heavy rain battered the city, washing dust from rooftops and flooding potholes along the busy Third Mainland Bridge. Drivers leaned on their horns, Danfo buses swerved recklessly, and the air smelled of roasted corn, exhaust fumes, and the salty spray from the lagoon. Under that same bridge, in a dark corner nobody wanted to look at, a girl crouched with her arms wrapped around her chest. She was 14, barefoot, and her thin dress clung to her skin. Her name was Adana, and tonight hunger was clawing at her stomach so fiercely she thought she might collapse. She spotted something rolling toward the gutter, a bruised apple, tossed out with food waste from a bukka across the road. She sprang forward, snatched it before it slipped into the filthy water, and pressed it against her chest. "Thief! Dirty thief!" the bukka woman shouted when she noticed. Her voice cut across the rain, drawing the attention of passers-by. Heads turned. A young man sneered. "Siam, area pickin'." Another woman shook her head. "No shame." Small girl stealing food from dustbin. Adana's cheeks burned, but she didn't drop the apple. She turned and ran, her small feet slapping puddles as she disappeared into the shadows. She was used to insults. People called her names every day, but she had long learned that insults didn't fill her belly. Food did. She ducked under the bridge, heart pounding, and knelt beside a frail figure lying on a torn raffia mat. The old woman was shivering, her lips cracked from fever. This was Mama Ifeoma, the only person in Lagos who ever spoke to Adana with kindness. "Mama, I brought food," Adana whispered, holding out the apple. Mama Ifeoma blinked weakly. Her eyes were milky with age, but they softened when she saw the child. "Why, my daughter? You are the one who needs food." Adana pushed the apple into her hands. "Please eat. If you die, who will tell me stories at night?" The old woman's throat worked as tears mixed with raindrops on her wrinkled cheeks. She took a bite with trembling hands. "God bless you, child. You give though you have nothing." Above them, traffic roared on the bridge. Nobody saw. Nobody cared. Yet in that forgotten space, love glowed between a homeless orphan and a dying old woman. At that same moment, not far away, a black Range Rover crawled through the storm. Inside sat Chief Chike Okafor, one of Nigeria's most powerful billionaires. His wristwatch gleamed, his Italian suit was spotless, and his phone buzzed non-stop with business calls. As the car slowed in traffic, Chike's eyes drifted out the tinted glass. He saw them, a girl in rags, kneeling beside a sickly woman under the bridge. For a fleeting second, his heart lurched. The sight dragged him backward through memory, back to a village house, the smell of roasted yam, and a mother's lullaby. "Sir, should we stop?" his driver asked, glancing at him through the rearview mirror. Chike blinked hard, shook off the ache in his chest, and waved dismissively. "No. Drive." The car pulled away, tires splashing water. Chike didn't know. He had just turned his back on his own mother. And Adana didn't know that the woman she was trying to save was the mother of one of the richest men in Nigeria. That night, Adana huddled close to Mama Ifeoma. The old woman coughed violently, clutching her chest. Panic surged in Adana's heart. She didn't have medicine. She barely had food. "Mama, don't leave me," she whispered. "I'll find help tomorrow, I promise." But the old woman's eyes fluttered shut. Her breathing slowed. Please wake up." Adana shook her gently, tears streaking her muddy cheeks. Mama Ifeoma's hand slid from the apple core onto the wet mat. Adana screamed into the night. Cars thundered past above. Nobody stopped. Was this the last breath of the only person who cared about Adana? What would you do if you saw a child feeding a dying woman under a bridge? Hit like if you've ever shown kindness to a stranger, and comment below where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for the next shocking chapter. Adana's scream echoed beneath the third mainland bridge, swallowed almost instantly by the noise of Lagos nightlife above her. The Danfo buses still honked, hawkers still shouted, and motorbikes still zigzagged through traffic like nothing had happened. But down there, under the concrete belly of the city, a 14-year-old orphan shook a frail woman with desperation. "Mama Ifeoma, please wake up. Please, you can't die. You promised you'd tell me the story about the tortoise and the moon. Please." The old woman's body lay still, her breath shallow. Her chest rose faintly, then dropped like it might never rise again. Adana's heart thudded against her ribs. She had seen death before, street boys stabbed in fights, homeless children wasting away from hunger, but she couldn't bear to lose Mama Ifeoma, the only person who made her feel human. "No!" she shouted, tears mixing with rainwater dripping from the bridge. "You're not leaving me too. Everybody leaves me. My papa, my mama, even my stepmother chased me away. You can't leave me." With trembling hands, she pressed the old woman's chest like she had once seen a nurse do on television through the glass window of a pharmacy. She counted out loud, pressing hard. 1, 2, 3, Mama, breathe. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, a weak cough rattled Mama Ifeoma's throat. Her eyes fluttered open. "Ah, Adana," she whispered. The girl gasped with relief. She dropped her forehead onto the old woman's chest and sobbed. "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, thank you, thank you." But the truth clawed at her heart. Mama Ifeoma was dying. If she didn't find real help soon, the old woman would not last the week. By morning, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets wet and steaming under the harsh Lagos sun. Adana set out barefoot, her thin dress clinging to her skin, carrying a rusty tin bowl she used to beg with. She stood at a busy junction, dodging Kiki Napep and shouting over the blaring horns. "Please, help us. My mama is sick. Just small money for medicine, a beg." Most people walked past without a glance. A man in a fine agbada hissed, "Lazy children everywhere." A young woman rolled her eyes, muttering, "Area rats, they should clear them away." Adana didn't care. She ran after a woman carrying bread on her head. "Auntie, just one slice, please. My mama is sick." The woman shoved her aside. "Go away, dirty girl." Tears stung Adana's eyes, but she refused to give up. She remembered Mama Ifeoma's words, "When life pushes you down, child, you must push back harder." By afternoon, she had collected a handful of coins and 1 sachet of pure water from a kind Okada rider. She rushed to a roadside chemist shop. "Uncle, please, give me medicine for cough," she begged, dropping the coins on the counter. The chemist looked at the pile and sneered. "This can't even buy paracetamol, small girl. Go call your parents." "My parents are dead," Adana snapped, her voice breaking. "Please, my mama is dying." The man shook his head and waved her away. Her chest burned with anger and helplessness. She scooped up her coins, stormed outside, and sat on the curb. Around her, Lagos life bustled on like she didn't exist. Just then, a hand touched her shoulder. She spun around to see a boy about her age, holding a tray of groundnuts. His clothes were ragged, but his smile was kind. "I'm Emeka," he said. "I saw you begging. Who is sick?" "My mama under the bridge," Adana whispered, wiping her tears. Emeka frowned. "The old woman? People say she is already gone." "She's not gone," Adana shouted. "She's still breathing, and I will save her." The boy studied her for a moment, then nodded. He reached into his tray, pulled out a handful of groundnuts, and pressed them into her palm. "Take. Maybe it will give her strength." Adana stared at him, stunned. It was the first time in days someone had given her something without insulting her. "Thank you," she whispered. That evening, she rushed back to Mama Ifioma, fed her water and groundnuts, and sat by her side until the woman fell asleep. But just as Adana closed her eyes to rest, the sound of heavy footsteps jolted her awake. 3 street boys, big, rough, with bloodshot eyes, were approaching. "See the small rat," one of them sneered. "She day hide food here." Adana's heart raced. She knew these boys. They were the kind who beat children for sport, the kind who stole from the weak. "I beg, leave us alone," she pleaded, shielding Mama Ifioma with her tiny body. But the tallest boy kicked her tin bowl aside, scattering her coins. "Shut up, dirty girl. You think you fit beg here without paying us?" "We are the kings of this bridge," another shouted. "You must pay toll." Adana's fists clenched. She had nothing left to give. "I won't let you hurt my mama," she screamed. The boys laughed, circling her like hyenas. One of them grabbed her arm and twisted it. She yelped in pain. Then, out of nowhere, someone shouted, "Leave her alone." It was Emeka. He stood at the edge of the shadows, holding a broken bottle in his hand, his chest rising and falling with courage. The boys turned, surprised. "Mind your business, groundnut boy," the leader sneered. But Emeka didn't back down. "If you touch her again, you'll regret it." For a tense moment, silence hung under the bridge, broken only by the sound of distant horns above. Then the leader snarled, "Fine. Keep your dirty friend. But next time she pays." They spat on the ground and walked away, their laughter fading into the night. Adana dropped to her knees, her body trembling. She looked at Emeka with wide eyes. Why did you help me?" The boy shrugged. "Because no one helped me when I was in your shoes. Now sleep. Tomorrow we try again." Adana's chest swelled with gratitude. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't completely alone. But as dawn broke, danger was already brewing. Far away, in a mansion on Banana Island, Chief Chike Okafor sat at a breakfast table filled with exotic fruit, bacon, and golden brown akara prepared by his chefs. His wife, Ngozi, flipped through a fashion magazine. "Darling," she said, "there's another story in the papers about beggars under the bridge. Government wants to clear them away." Chike grunted without interest. But the photograph on the front page caught his eye. It was blurry, taken in the rain, but he saw them. A thin girl kneeling beside an old woman under the third mainland bridge. His fork froze in midair. Something about the woman's face tugged at his memory, like a song he used to know but had forgotten. He shook his head and forced a laugh. They should clear them out. They make the city look ugly. But deep inside, his heart raced. Could it be? The Lagos morning sky glowed pale orange as the city roared awake. The hum of generators filled the air, vendors arranged their goods, and Danfo conductors shouted destinations with voices already hoarse. Under the third mainland bridge, Adana sat beside Mama Ifioma, fanning her weak body with a piece of cardboard. The old woman coughed, her thin frame rattling like dry sticks in the wind. "Mama, please hold on," Adana whispered. "I will find medicine soon. I promise." Mama Ifioma smiled faintly, her cracked lips trembling. "My daughter, you give me reason to fight. You remind me of a son I once lost." Adana's ears perked. "You had a son?" The old woman nodded slowly, her gaze drifting into the past. "Yes. My Chike. They took him from me when he was only 7 years old. I searched, I prayed, but I never found him." Adana's heart ached at the pain in her voice. She wanted to ask more, but just then the sound of heavy boots on gravel broke the air. "Move, move. Clear the place." Adana jumped to her feet. A group of uniformed men marched toward the cluster of homeless people under the bridge. Behind them was a government truck with the words, "Environmental Task Force" painted on its side. A tall officer barked orders. This place is not a home. All of you out. The government is clearing under this bridge today. Panic spread. Children clutched their mothers, old men tried to gather their few belongings, and the air filled with desperate cries. Adana clung to Mama Ifioma. No. She's sick. Please, let her stay. The officer sneered. Not my business. If she can't move, then she'll be carried away with the trash. Rage surged through Adana's small body. She stood in front of Mama Ifioma, arms outstretched. You can't take her. She's not trash. She's my mama. The officer's jaw tightened. He raised his baton. Before it could fall, a voice cut through the chaos. Leave the girl alone. It was Emeka. He rushed forward, holding his tray of groundnuts like a shield. His voice trembled, but his eyes burned with courage. She's just a child. Can't you see the woman is dying? The officer glared at him. Boy, go before we lock you up too. But Emeka didn't move. If you touch her, you'll have to go through me. For a tense moment, silence hung heavy under the bridge. Then the officer spat on the ground. Fine. But tomorrow, this place is gone. You hear me? Tomorrow. They turned and marched away, leaving fear behind like smoke. Adana dropped to her knees beside Mama Ifioma, trembling. Mama, did you hear that? We'll be thrown out tomorrow. Where will we go? The old woman's eyes filled with tears. Child, sometimes life pushes us into storms so that destiny can find us. But Adana wasn't thinking about destiny. She was thinking about survival. That evening, as the sun dipped into the lagoon, Adana went out to beg again. Her bare feet slapped the hot pavement as she weaved through traffic, holding out her rusty tin bowl. I beg, help us. My mama is sick. Most ignored her. Some cursed. A few threw coins. But when a well-dressed woman dropped a crisp 1,000 naira note into her bowl, Adana almost cried from relief. God bless you, madam, she shouted, clutching the note. She ran toward a pharmacy, hope pounding in her chest. But just as she reached the door, a hand grabbed her bowl. Give me that. It was one of the street boys from before, the tall one with the scar across his cheek. He yanked the bowl from her hands, spilling coins onto the sidewalk. No. That's for my mama. Adana screamed, clawing at him. The boy shoved her to the ground. You think you can survive here without us? Everything you beg belongs to us. He pocketed the note, kicked her bowl aside, and walked off laughing. Adana lay on the pavement, sobbing as people walked past, barely sparing her a glance. She dragged herself up, wiped her tears, and whispered to herself, I will not give up. I will save her. No matter what. But that night, as she sat by Mama Ifioma's side empty-handed, the old woman's condition grew worse. Her cough deepened, her breathing shallow. Adana, she whispered. Come close. Adana leaned in, clutching her hand. The old woman reached up with trembling fingers and touched her face. You have a heart of gold. One day, God will reward you. Never let this city take your kindness away. Adana's tears spilled freely. I won't, Mama. I promise. But as the night deepened, far away in Banana Island, Chief Chike couldn't sleep. He sat alone in his study, staring at the blurry newspaper photo of the homeless under the bridge. His mind replayed the face of the old woman. Something about her eyes haunted him. He pulled out an old wooden box from his desk drawer. Inside was a faded photograph of himself as a child, sitting on the lap of a smiling woman. He held the photo up beside the newspaper clipping. His hand shook. Could it be? Mama, he whispered. Just then, his wife Ngozi walked in, irritation in her voice. Chike, why are you wasting time staring at old rubbish? You're not a poor boy anymore. Focus on your business. He quickly shoved the photo back into the drawer, his heart pounding. But sleep would not come that night. For the first time in years, Chief Chike felt the ache of something he had buried long ago. And under the bridge, Adana stayed awake too, holding Mama Ifeoma's frail hand and praying that morning would not bring the end. Because morning would bring the bulldozers. Will Adana and Mama Ifeoma survive the government's plan to clear under the bridge? Or will they be crushed by forces too powerful to fight? If you were Adana, would you fight the officers or run? Comment your answer below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more emotional African stories. Share this episode with someone who loves drama. The heavy iron gates of the Oladipo mansion slid open, their metallic groan echoing in the quiet of the wealthy neighborhood. Expensive cars glistened under the Lagos sun, sleek Mercedes, towering Range Rovers, and a custom Rolls-Royce that seemed to mock the dust and sweat clinging to Adewole's clothes. For a moment, Adewole hesitated, gripping the little boy's hand tightly. He could not understand why a billionaire's convoy would stop for him on the roadside. It felt like a trick, like the street gangs that sometimes lured beggars with promises of food only to beat them for fun. But the boy tugged at his hand, pulling him toward the wide-open driveway. "Uncle," the boy whispered with innocent certainty, "my daddy will help you." "I know he will." The words pierced Adewole's heart. He had long stopped believing in help, but something about the boy's steady gaze made him take a step forward. Inside the mansion, the air smelled of polished wood and imported flowers. Marble floors stretched endlessly, reflecting the golden glow of chandeliers. Everything screamed of wealth. Adewole's eyes darted nervously. He felt like a stain in a perfect painting. His faded shirt and torn trousers stood in sharp contrast to the immaculate servants gliding past in crisp uniforms. The boy led him toward a large study where the walls were lined with books and family portraits. Behind an oak desk sat Chief Oladipo, the billionaire himself, dressed in a tailored agbada. His face was stern, his expression unreadable. "Father," the boy said, stepping forward confidently, "this is the man I told you about. He was begging in the rain. Can we help him, please?" Chief Oladipo's eyes narrowed. His gaze moved from the boy to Adewole, scanning him from head to toe. There was something in his stare that made Adewole want to shrink into himself, but pride, or perhaps desperation, kept him standing. "You," the chief said finally, his voice deep and commanding. "What is your name?" "Adewole, sir," he murmured, his voice barely more than a whisper. "And what do you do? Where is your family?" The questions stung like whips. Adewole's throat tightened. He wanted to lie, to invent a story that would earn pity, but the truth pressed against his chest like a heavy stone. I sweep the streets, sir. Or sometimes wash cars, if people allow. My family. I have none." The boy gasped softly, but Chief Oladipo's face remained cold. He tapped his desk lightly, thinking. "And why were you begging on the roadside today?" Adewole swallowed hard. His pride rebelled, but hunger had stripped him of shame long ago. "Because I had not eaten in 2 days. The rain came, and I had no shelter. I was tired, sir." For a long moment, silence filled the room. The boy clutched his father's sleeve, whispering urgently, "Please, Daddy. We must help him." Finally, Chief Oladipo stood. His agbada swept the floor as he walked slowly around the desk, his shoes clicking against the marble. He stopped directly in front of Adewole, towering over him. "You look familiar," the chief said suddenly, tilting his head as though trying to place a memory. "Have I seen you before?" Adewole froze. His heart pounded violently. "No, it cannot be. He doesn't know me. He must not know." He forced a weak smile. I don't think so, sir. I am just a poor man." But inside, panic roared. Chief Oladipo's son was right. There was a connection. A secret that Adewale had carried for years. A truth buried so deep he thought it would never surface. The chief's eyes lingered on him a moment longer, then softened slightly. Fine. You may stay here for now. The servants will give you food and clean clothes. But remember, this is not a charity house. You must work if you remain here. Tears welled in Adewale's eyes, but he forced them back. Thank you, sir. I will work hard. I will not cause trouble. The boy beamed, clapping his hands. I knew you would help him, Daddy. But even as Adewale bowed in gratitude, a chill ran down his spine. For behind the chief's kindness was suspicion. And behind Adewale's grateful smile was a secret he dared not speak. Later that night, in the servants' quarters, Adewale lay on a small bed with a full stomach for the first time in weeks. The walls were plain, the mattress thin, but to him it felt like a palace. He stared at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of generators and the occasional bark of guard dogs. Yet sleep would not come. Memories stormed his mind. Years ago, on a rainy night much like this one, a younger Adewale had saved a man from a violent robbery near Ojulegba Bridge. He had not known then that the man was Chief Oladipo. He had risked his life, fighting off the attackers with nothing but a broken bottle. He had bled that night, bruised and battered, but the man he saved had driven away without even asking his name. Adewale had never forgotten. And now here he was, standing inside that very man's mansion. The irony cut deep. The next morning, Adewale was assigned to work in the garden. As he trimmed hedges and watered flowers, whispers trailed behind him. The servants eyed him with suspicion, some with outright hostility. Another stray, one cook muttered. Let's see how long he lasts before he's thrown out. But Adewale ignored them. He bent to his work, sweat soaking his borrowed shirt, determination burning in his chest. He could not afford mistakes. This chance, this fragile thread of kindness, might be the only one left in his life. By afternoon, the little boy returned, skipping happily across the grass. He sat by Adewale, asking endless questions about his life, his favorite food, his dreams. Adewale laughed softly at the boy's curiosity, but each answer felt like peeling open wounds. When the boy asked about his parents, Adewale only said, "They are gone." The boy's eyes softened. "Then you can be like my uncle," he said simply. "Everyone needs family." The words pierced Adewale's soul. He looked at the boy, wondering if fate had led him here not by accident but by design. Still, he could not ignore the shadow that lingered, the secret of the past, the connection to the chief, the truth that could destroy everything. That night, as he lay in bed, Adewale whispered to himself, "If he ever remembers, if he ever knows, I am finished." But destiny has a cruel way of pulling secrets into the light. Because the very next week, Chief Oladipo found an old newspaper clipping hidden inside one of his desk drawers, a yellowed article about a man saved from armed robbers near Ojulegba years ago. The description of the rescuer matched Adewale almost exactly. The chief's hands trembled as he read. Could it be the same man now sleeping under his roof? His heart pounded with a mixture of gratitude, suspicion, and fear. And he vowed silently, "I must find out who this Adewale truly is." The morning sun spilled over the Oladipo mansion, painting the tall gates and trimmed hedges in gold. Adewale rose early from the servants' quarters, his muscles aching from the previous day's labor. He washed quickly, then headed out to the garden where the dew still clung to the grass. The rhythm of work steadied his heart. Cutting roses, pulling weeds, raking paths. Tasks that seemed small to the wealthy felt like survival to him. Every cut of the shears was a reminder. Don't fail, don't draw attention, don't lose this chance. But in a mansion like this, nothing stayed hidden for long. By mid-morning, Adewale felt the weight of eyes on him. The other servants whispered as he passed, their conversations dropping into silence whenever he approached. He could hear fragments. Why him? Stray dog. Chief is losing sense. Still, he bent his head and worked. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Chief Oladipo sat in his study, the yellowed newspaper clipping spread out before him. The headline read, "Street Janitor Saves Businessman from Armed Robbery Near Ojulegba." His fingers traced the blurred photograph. Though the rescuer's face was shadowed, the resemblance was undeniable. The lean build, the sharp cheekbones, the eyes, determined even in grainy ink. Chief Oladipo leaned back heavily in his leather chair. He remembered that night too well. The sudden attack, the sharp knives glinting, the desperate struggle, and then the young man who had fought like a lion to save him. He had driven off shaken, bleeding, without even asking his name. And now, after all these years, could that very man be working in his garden? It unsettled him. Gratitude battled suspicion. Gratitude because the man had saved his life. Suspicion because fate was rarely so neat. Why had this Adewale returned now, of all times? The chief's thoughts were interrupted when his son ran into the study. "Daddy!" the boy exclaimed. "Uncle Adewale told me a story yesterday about sleeping under a bridge. Can we give him more clothes? He only has 2 shirts." The chief's eyes narrowed. "Adewale, you say? You have been speaking much with him." "Yes, Daddy," the boy said proudly. "He is kind. He smiles even when he is tired. He is like family already." Chief Oladipo forced a thin smile. "Family," he muttered, dismissing his son with a wave. But the word echoed in his mind long after the boy had gone. That afternoon, Adewale was summoned into the mansion. He wiped his hands nervously on his trousers as he entered the grand study. Chief Oladipo was seated behind the massive oak desk, his eyes piercing. On the desk, half hidden under a folder, lay the old newspaper clipping. "Adewale," the chief began calmly, "how long have you been in Lagos?" "All my life, sir," Adewale replied, his throat dry. "And in that life, have you ever had cause to fight robbers?" The question struck like thunder. Adewale's heart slammed in his chest. He fought to keep his face steady. "Robbers, sir? I have seen many. Lagos is full of danger." The chief leaned forward, voice dropping low. "I am not asking about seeing. I am asking about fighting." Silence thickened the air. Adewale's palms sweated. He wanted to lie, to deny, to protect the fragile stability he had found here. But the memory of that bloody night burned too vividly. Finally, he whispered, "Yes, sir. Long ago." The chief's eyes darkened. "I thought so." Adewale's breath caught. "Sir." But before he could speak, the chief's phone buzzed. He lifted it, listened briefly, then stood. "I must attend to business. We will continue this conversation later." Relief and terror collided in Adewale's chest. He bowed quickly and retreated, but he knew one thing: the chief suspected everything. In the days that followed, tension crackled like dry firewood. Chief Oladipo began to watch him closely. Servants noticed the shift, whispering more viciously now. "Why does Chief keep him?" one maid sneered. "He's trouble. Mark my words." At night, Adewale could not sleep. He lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling of the servants' quarters, listening to the night guards pacing outside. He replayed the chief's words over and over. "I thought so." He knew the truth would surface eventually. But what would it bring? Gratitude or destruction? One evening, as rain lashed the mansion, Adewale was called to the kitchen. The boy sat there, refusing to eat, his small face twisted in stubbornness. "What is wrong, little one?" Adewale asked gently. The boy looked up, his eyes wet. Daddy is angry these days. He doesn't smile. He says I must not speak too much with you. But I want to. You are my friend. Adewale's chest tightened. He placed a rough hand on the boy's shoulder. Sometimes fathers are strict because they are afraid. But do not worry. I will not leave you. The boy brightened. Promise. Promise. They ate together quietly. But Adewale felt the shadow deepening. Late that night, after everyone slept, Adewale slipped out to the garden. The rain had eased, leaving the air heavy and damp. He sat under the mango tree, staring at the mansion's glowing windows. His mind wrestled with memories. The rescue, the bruises, the blood. He had saved a stranger that night and walked away empty, unseen, forgotten. Now fate had returned him to the same man's home. Should he reveal the truth? Should he tell the chief that without him, he might not even be alive today? Or should he keep silent, fearing the chief's suspicion, the servant's scorn, the possible rejection that could throw him back into the streets? As he wrestled, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was the chief. He stood in the rain-wet grass, his agboda clinging to him, his eyes burning with intensity. Adewale, he said, his voice like iron. I know it was you. You saved me that night years ago at Ojulegba. Don't deny it. Adewale froze. His secret, dragged into the open. His heart pounded so loudly he could barely hear the rain dripping from the leaves. He opened his mouth to speak, but before a word could leave his lips, the boy's voice rang from the balcony above. Daddy! Uncle Adewale! What are you doing in the rain? Both men looked up. The fragile moment shattered. The next morning, the Oladipo mansion felt like a battlefield where no one had fired a gun yet, but everyone knew war was coming. Adewale carried out his chores as usual, watering the hedges, trimming the hibiscus bushes, sweeping the broad tiled compound, but his mind was a whirlpool. Chief Oladipo's words from the night before had struck deep. I know it was you. There was no denying it now. The man had recognized him. The truth was out, yet no resolution had come. Above all, Adewale feared what this truth might trigger. In a house where money ruled and whispers moved faster than air, a servant's secret could become a weapon in anyone's hands. Inside, the chief was a storm contained in Agboda. He paced his study restlessly, glancing at the old newspaper clipping lying on his desk. He could still see Adewale's young face in the shadows of that old photograph. Gratitude gnawed at him. This was the man who had once risked his life for him. And yet, suspicion clouded it all. Why had Adewale never come forward? Why appear now, after years of silence? The chief's wife, Madam Ijeoma, soon entered. She was tall, graceful and sharp-eyed, her geli tied like a crown. She had always been quick to notice shifts in her husband's mood. You haven't eaten, she said, narrowing her eyes. What troubles you? The chief sighed heavily. That new gardener. Adewale. What of him? I believe he is the one who saved me long ago. The one I never found. Madam Ijeoma frowned. Saved you? Yes. But something is strange. He hid the truth all this time. Why? What does he want from me? Her lips pressed thin. A poor man who hides secrets in your house is dangerous, Chike. Gratitude is one thing, but trust? Be careful. Her warning settled like a curse. That evening, while Adewale was clearing branches in the back garden, a group of servants cornered him. They had been whispering for days, and now their envy spilled into action. You think you are special, heir? One sneered. Because Oga's son calls you uncle? You walk around with your chest high, another hissed. But you are nothing but a street rat. Adewale tried to walk past them, but one shoved his shoulder. Another tripped him. He fell hard into the dirt. Laughter erupted. See the mighty gardener. But Adewale did not fight. He stood, dusted himself quietly, and walked away. The humiliation burned, but the boy's trust in him kept him steady. If he lost his temper now, he would lose everything. Later that night, in the kitchen, the chief's son found him nursing a cut on his arm. "Uncle Adewale, who hurt you?" the boy asked, alarmed. "Just a small accident," Adewale lied with a weak smile. "Nothing to worry about." The boy frowned. "I don't like when you hide things. You are family. Daddy may not see it, but I know." The words cut deeper than any wound. For the first time in years, Adewale felt like he belonged somewhere. The next day, trouble escalated. The chief had invited business associates to a dinner in his grand dining hall. It was a lavish spread: jollof rice, pepper soup, fried plantain, and imported champagne glistening in crystal glasses. Musicians played softly in the background, their drums and guitars filling the mansion with rhythm. As the guests arrived, Adewale stood quietly at the side, helping serve drinks. He tried to keep his head low, but one of the visiting businessmen, a rival named Chief Okoro, squinted at him. "Excuse me," Okoro said loudly across the table. "That servant. Where do I know his face from?" Every head turned. Adewale froze. Okoro snapped his fingers. "Yes. Years ago, in Ojulegba, there was an armed robbery. A young man saved a businessman's life. I was there that night." "That is him." Gasps filled the room. All eyes turned to Adewale. Chief Oladipo's jaw clenched. His secret had been dragged into the open by another man. "Is it true?" Okoro demanded. "Was he the one who saved you?" The chief's lips tightened. "Enough," he said coldly. "This is not dinner talk." But the damage was done. The room buzzed with whispers. Adewale felt the heat of 100 eyes burning into him. Later, when the guests had gone, Madame Ijeoma cornered her husband. "Do you see? Now outsiders are talking. This man will bring disgrace into our home. Remove him before it is too late." The chief said nothing. He only stared out the window into the night where Adewale stood silently, the boy at his side. That same night, Adewale sneaked to the backyard mango tree. His heart was heavy with shame and fear. He whispered to himself, "God, why did you bring me here? To be lifted up only to be disgraced." As he prayed, the chief appeared once again. "Adewale," he said sternly, "I need the truth. Why did you never come to me after that night? Why now?" Adewale lifted his eyes. "Because I had nothing, sir. No family. No proof. Only scars. I did not want your pity. I only wanted to survive." The chief studied him for a long moment. His voice softened. "You are either the greatest blessing to enter this house, or the greatest danger." Before Adewale could reply, a piercing scream shattered the night. It came from inside the mansion. Both men raced back in, only to find Madame Ijeoma standing in the hall, pointing at a broken vase on the floor. But her face was not frightened. It was furious. "This man," she shouted, pointing at Adewale, "is after everything we own. Can't you see it, Chaik? He has bewitched even your son." The boy, half asleep, clutched Adewale's hand and cried, "No. He is not bad." The chief's face hardened, torn between wife and son, suspicion and gratitude. And then Madame Ijeoma spat the words that made everyone freeze. "If you don't drive him out, Chaik, I will leave this house and take your son with me." What would you do if your spouse gave you such an ultimatum? Choose them or someone else. Comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more shocking drama like this. The Oladipo mansion was never quiet again after Madame Ijeoma's ultimatum. Her voice, sharp, trembling with rage, echoed in every corner of the house. If you don't drive him out, Chaik, I will leave this house and take your son with me. For days, the chief moved like a man under a heavy chain. He went to meetings, smiled at cameras, signed million-dollar deals, but inside his chest his heart was a battlefield. His wife's warning gnawed at him. His son's trust in Adewale softened him. And his memory of that rainy night in Ojuelegba held him hostage. Madame Ijeoma, however, did not wait. She began her own quiet war. She whispered to the servants, fueling their contempt for Adewale. She dropped venom in her husband's ear each night. Can't you see he is manipulating your son? You are a chief, Chaik, yet you let a beggar dine at your table. If tomorrow he claims your fortune, don't say I didn't warn you. Slowly, her poison spread. The mansion buzzed with gossip, and Adewale's every move was watched with suspicion. One Sunday, the family attended church at a popular cathedral in Ikoyi. The hall was packed with politicians, businessmen, and society women wrapped in colorful lace and towering geli. The sermon was about forgiveness, but the whispers in the pews were anything but holy. Is that not Chief Oladipo's new gardener? One woman murmured. Yes, the same man who saved him years ago, another replied. They say Oga has brought him into the house. Too close if you ask me. Ha! I even heard Madam is threatening divorce. By the time the service ended, the rumors had multiplied like ants on sugar. Chief Oladipo's enemies pounced on it. By Monday morning, gossip blogs carried headlines. Who is the stranger living in Chief Oladipo's mansion? Secret past of a billionaire's servant revealed. Photos of Adewale serving drinks at the dinner had somehow leaked online. The humiliation was unbearable. At breakfast, Madame Ijeoma flung the newspaper onto the table. Are you satisfied now, Chaik? Do you see what your stubbornness has brought us? Public disgrace. The chief's face darkened. His son, sitting quietly with his spoon, looked between them, frightened. Adewale, standing by the door with the other servants, felt his stomach twist. This wasn't just gossip anymore. It was war. That afternoon, Madame Ijeoma cornered Adewale in the garden. Her eyes blazed as she hissed, "You will leave this house today, whether my husband throws you out or I drag you by myself. I will not let a street rat ruin everything I built." Adewale bowed his head, his voice calm. "Madam, I have no intention to destroy. I only want to serve." "Liar," she spat. "I see how my son clings to you. You want to replace his father. You want to replace me." Her voice rose so high that other servants gathered, their faces gleaming with satisfaction at the drama. And then she slapped him. The sound cracked through the garden. Gasps filled the air. Adewale staggered but did not retaliate. His cheek burned, his dignity shredded, but he kept his head bowed. At that very moment, the chief walked into the compound. He froze, his eyes widening at the sight of his wife's raised hand and his servant's bowed head. "What is happening here?" he thundered. Madame Ijeoma rushed to him, crocodile tears in her eyes. "This man. He dares to speak against me, to insult me in front of the servants. Chaik, if you do not send him away, you will lose me forever." The chief's gaze shifted between her trembling hands and Adewale's swollen cheek. Silence hung thick as harmattan dust. That night, the house was split in two. Madame Ijeoma barricaded herself in the master bedroom, refusing to eat or speak. The servants muttered their approval, praising her strength. But the boy sneaked into the servants' quarters, his small arms wrapping tightly around Adewale. "Don't leave me, uncle. Please. They all lie. You are good." Adewale's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I will never abandon you," he whispered. But in his heart, he knew the storm was far from over. The next day, Chief Oladipo called Adewale into his study. The newspaper clipping still lay on the desk, but now it was joined by the latest scandalous headlines. The chief's voice was heavy. Adewale, the world is talking. My wife is on the edge. My household is divided. Tell me, why has fate brought you into my life again? What do you want from me? Adewale's chest tightened. He thought of his lonely nights under bridges, his hunger, the faces that mocked him, the boy who trusted him, and the old woman under the bridge who had given him hope. I want nothing but a chance to live with dignity, he said quietly. I did not ask for your house or your fortune. Only for work, for bread, for peace. The chief studied him for a long time, torn between suspicion and truth. Then finally he said, Very well. But if you bring one more disgrace to my name, you will leave this place forever. Adewale bowed. Yes, sir. But the battle was far from finished. That evening, Madame Ijeoma called her lawyer. Prepare the papers, she said coldly. If he chooses that servant over me, then I will show him what disgrace truly means. She ended the call, her lips curling into a smile that promised nothing but war. The mansion is divided. The wife is preparing for divorce, the son clings to Adewale, and the chief struggles between gratitude and fear. But will Madame Ijeoma's next move destroy Adewale once and for all? Your son is alive. The words echoed in Mama Ifeoma's ears as though the entire city of Lagos had fallen silent just to let her hear them. Her frail fingers trembled as she held onto the hospital bed rail, her wide eyes locked on the doctor who had just spoken. My son, she whispered, her voice cracking. Yes, the doctor repeated softly. The DNA results prove it beyond any doubt. The billionaire, Chief Kenechukwu Okoro, is your biological son. Mama Ifeoma's knees buckled. Amina leapt forward and caught her just before she collapsed onto the floor. Mama, breathe, please. Amina cried, her eyes filled with both fear and excitement. The room was spinning. Mama Ifeoma's heart pounded like a drum, threatening to burst. She had spent decades believing her only son was dead. And now, he was not only alive, but one of the most powerful and untouchable men in Nigeria. Tears spilled down her wrinkled cheeks as she gasped for air. My child, my boy. But the joy that surged through her chest was instantly clouded by fear. Would Kenechukwu even recognize her? Would he accept her after all these years? Or would he cast her aside, ashamed of her poverty, her wrinkles, her broken state? Amina's grip tightened around Mama Ifeoma's hands. Mama, this is God's miracle. You fed her every day without knowing she was the mother of the richest man in Lagos. Now, her son will know the truth. This is your chance. But before Mama Ifeoma could respond, a nurse hurried into the room, her face pale with panic. Doctor, something is wrong at the VIP wing, she exclaimed. What happened? The doctor demanded. The chief, he collapsed during a board meeting. He was rushed here just now. His condition is critical. The air froze. Amina's eyes widened in horror. Kenechukwu, she whispered. Yes. Chief Kenechukwu Okoro, the nurse confirmed. Mama Ifeoma's heart nearly stopped. Her son, the boy she had thought she lost forever, was lying somewhere in the same hospital, fighting for his life. She clutched Amina's hand desperately. Take me to him. Now. The doctor hesitated. Mama, it may not be allowed. Security is very tight. But Mama Ifeoma's voice shook the walls. He is my son. The words came out with a force that made even the nurse flinch. Without waiting for permission, she stumbled out of the room, her fragile frame somehow moving with the urgency of a mother who had carried grief for decades and was not about to lose her child again. Amina chased after her. Mama, wait. They rushed through the long hospital corridors, passing rows of nurses and security men. Shouts filled the air as the billionaire's bodyguards pushed people aside. The air reeked of tension, of money, of fear. At the end of the corridor, through the glass walls of the intensive care unit, they saw him. Chief Kenechukwu lay on the bed, tubes running into his nose and arms, his chest rising and falling weakly. His expensive suit had been torn open to allow doctors to work on him. His face, aged, powerful, known across Nigeria, was twisted in pain. But Mama Ifeoma saw none of that. She only saw the small scar just above his right collarbone. The scar she had made herself when she had stitched his wound as a child after he fell from a tree. Her hands flew to her mouth. Her body trembled violently. "That is my son," she whispered. Amina looked from Mama Ifeoma to the unconscious billionaire, and her own tears came. The resemblance was undeniable now. The same sharp nose. The same eyes, though now closed. Even the way his jaw clenched resembled Mama Ifeoma's stubbornness. Suddenly, a group of men in expensive suits approached. Their leader, a tall man with a cold face, blocked the women's path. "You cannot be here," he snapped. "This is the chief's private wing." Mama Ifeoma lifted her chin, her frail body trembling but her voice steady. "I am his mother." The man scoffed. "Do not insult us. The chief's mother is long dead." "I am his mother," Mama Ifeoma repeated, her voice breaking. "I bore him into this world. I fed him with my own hands. He was stolen from me when he was only 7 years old. Look at his shoulder. Look at the scar. Only a mother knows the mark of her child." The man's expression hardened. "Enough of this madness. Guards." 2 armed security men stepped forward. Amina quickly stepped between them and Mama Ifeoma. "Please, listen to her. We have proof. The DNA test is in the doctor's office. You can't turn her away like this." But the guards grabbed Mama Ifeoma by the arms, ignoring her cries. "Let me see my son," she screamed, her voice echoing down the corridor like a wail from the grave. Doctors inside the ICU glanced up briefly but returned to their frantic work. The billionaire's monitors beeped in warning. "Remove them," the tall man ordered coldly. The guards dragged Mama Ifeoma back. Amina struggled, shouting at them to stop, but they were too strong. As Mama Ifeoma was pulled away, she locked eyes on her son through the glass, tears streaming endlessly down her face. "Kenechukwu, my child. It is me, your mother," she cried. Her voice pierced the sterile air of the hospital. And though the billionaire was unconscious, his body stirred faintly, as if some part of his soul recognized the sound that had once sung him lullabies in a small village hut decades ago. But before anyone could react, the monitors in the ICU shrieked in alarm. The billionaire's body convulsed. Doctors rushed to his side. "Cardiac arrest. We're losing him." The world tilted. Amina screamed. Mama Ifeoma fought against the guards with the strength of a lioness. "Let me go. He cannot die again. I will not lose my son twice." Her voice broke with a pain so deep that even the guards hesitated for a moment. Inside the ICU, doctors fought desperately to revive the billionaire. The room filled with chaos, electricity, and urgency. And just as the doctors prepared to shock his heart back to life, one of them shouted, "He's flatlining." The monitor went silent. The billionaire's life hung on a single thread. Mama Ifeoma collapsed to her knees, her hands raised to the heavens, her cry shaking the entire corridor. "No. God, no." To be continued. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. Do you think Kenechukwu will recognize his mother if he survives? Comment your thoughts below. The ICU was filled with chaos. "Clear," the doctor shouted, pressing the defibrillator pads to Chief Kenechukwu's chest. His body jolted violently, but the heart monitor remained flat. Mama Ifeoma's scream tore through the hospital corridor. She fell on her knees, her hands clutching her chest as if her own heart was being ripped apart. God, please. Please don't take him from me again. Amina knelt beside her, tears streaming down her face, whispering prayers as though her voice could reach heaven faster. Inside the room, the doctors tried again. Clear. Another jolt. This time, the monitor beeped faintly. A tiny line flickered across the screen. He's back. We've got a rhythm. A rush of relief swept the room. The doctors stabilized the billionaire, his breathing shallow but steady. The crisis had passed, for now. The security men, shaken by Mama Ifeoma's desperation, released their grip. She stumbled forward, her frail body leaning against the glass wall, staring at her son as tears of gratitude poured freely. He lives, she whispered, her voice trembling. My son lives. Amina squeezed her shoulder. He will wake, Mama. And when he does, he will know you. But doubt clouded Mama Ifeoma's heart. Would he truly believe her? Would the billionaire accept a ragged old woman from the streets as his mother? Or would he see only shame? Days passed. Mama Ifeoma and Amina camped outside the ICU, refusing to leave. Word spread through the hospital, whispers of a homeless woman claiming to be the billionaire's mother. Some mocked her, others pitied her. But Mama Ifeoma's faith never wavered. Then, on the morning of the fourth day, the doors opened. Chief Kenechukwu is awake, the doctor announced. Mama Ifeoma's legs nearly gave way. Amina held her tightly, and together they followed the doctor inside. The billionaire sat propped against the pillows, his face pale, his eyes sharp but weary. When he saw them enter, his brow furrowed. Who are they? He asked, his voice hoarse. The tall security man stepped forward quickly. Chief, this old woman claims to be your mother. It's nonsense. Leave us, the billionaire cut in weakly, his gaze fixed on Mama Ifeoma. The room fell silent. Slowly, the others obeyed, filing out one by one until only Kenechukwu, Mama Ifeoma, Amina, and the doctor remained. Mama Ifeoma's legs trembled as she shuffled closer. Her hands shook violently, but she forced herself to speak. My child, you don't know how many nights I cried for you. How many days I searched the earth for you. They told me you were dead, but I never stopped praying. Kenechukwu's expression hardened. Old woman, I don't know you. My mother died years ago. No, Mama Ifeoma said firmly, her voice cracking but resolute. She stepped closer, her eyes burning with tears. Look at me. Look at the scar above your shoulder. Kenechukwu froze. Mama Ifeoma's trembling hand pointed to the faint scar on his collarbone. You fell from a tree when you were a boy. I stitched that wound myself with trembling hands because we had no hospital. You cried, and I held you, and I swore nothing would ever hurt you again. For the first time, the billionaire's eyes softened. His hand rose slowly to touch the scar, as though memory stirred in the deepest part of his soul. I remember a woman's voice, he whispered, singing to me, cooking maize porridge. A hut with smoke in the air. His voice broke. Mama. Mama Ifeoma collapsed against the bed, clutching his hand to her face as sobs racked her frail body. My son. My Kenechukwu. God has returned you to me. Tears filled the billionaire's eyes as he pulled her weak body into his arms. For the first time in decades, he allowed himself to be a child again, cradled by the mother he thought was lost forever. Amina wept silently at the sight, her own heart overwhelmed by the miracle she had been part of. Later, when the room had calmed, Kenechukwu turned to her. And you? Who are you? Amina wiped her tears. I am nobody, Chief. Just a homeless orphan who found Mama Ifeoma starving on the streets. I gave her food every day because Because I could not let her die. The billionaire's eyes widened. His gaze moved between his mother and the young woman who had saved her. Slowly, he reached for Amina's hand. You saved my mother's life, he said, his voice deep with emotion. You saved the only family I have ever known. No wealth, no power, no empire can repay that. But I will try. Days turned to weeks, and the story spread across Lagos like wildfire. Newspapers carried headlines. Billionaire reunites with long-lost mother after decades. Social media buzzed with clips of the emotional reunion. But the greatest shock came months later, when Chief Kenechukwu stood before cameras at a lavish event. Beside him were Mama Ifeoma and Amina, dressed in elegant attire. He lifted Amina's hand for the world to see. This woman, once homeless and rejected, gave life back to my mother when the world abandoned her. She showed love when no one else cared. Today, she will be more than my savior. She will be my wife. The crowd gasped. Reporters shouted. Flashes exploded like fireworks. Amina's tears glistened under the lights as she looked at Mama Ifeoma, who nodded with joy. The billionaire continued, his voice breaking with rare vulnerability. For years, I was barren in love. Every woman I married left me childless, hopeless. But God has given me a second chance, not only with my mother, but with the woman who saved her. Amina, you are my miracle. The crowd erupted in applause. Months later, Amina became Mrs. Amina Okoro, wife of the billionaire. Their union was celebrated across Africa. But the greatest joy came when, against all odds, Amina conceived. On the day their child was born, Mama Ifeoma held her grandchild in trembling hands, her tears wetting the baby's tiny forehead. My son was taken from me once, she whispered, smiling through her tears. But God returned him. And now, he has given me more than I ever dreamed. The cycle of pain had ended. Love had triumphed. From the streets of Lagos to the mansion of billionaires, from sorrow to joy, from betrayal to reunion, this was their story. And it began with a homeless orphan who fed a dying old woman, unaware she was saving a billionaire's mother. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more powerful stories like this one. What lesson touched your heart most? Faith, love, or resilience? Comment below and share this story with someone who believes in miracles.